I just want to start by saying thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. I suppose we should start right at the beginning. How did you discover the harp? How did that sort of enter your sort of realm of knowledge?
So, I think I was very lucky growing up. One of the girls in my class in my primary school, her mum played the harp. And so she ran like a tiny little harp group in the school that I went to. And it was actually just that my best friend started having lessons. Uh, and I was like, oh, Mum, Dad, she's doing it. I want to do it too. Uh, and so yeah, I think about 3 years in, she gave up and I kept going and I moved schools when I was 13 and I was the only harpist and was like, oh, this is actually quite rare.
Because it's quite a complicated instrument to pick up.
Supposedly, but I think one of the great things about the harp is it sounds really good, like from the beginning. Like you
Hmm.
can play the simplest things and it sounds great. Whereas I feel like for kids who are learning like the
Violin.
violin or the
Hmm.
oboe or the cello, there's a long period of oh God, who's killing the cat?
I used to play violin, and that's the exact phrase my parents used when I first started.
Really?
Yes.
Did you actually have a cat growing up?
No, that makes it even worse.
But Reese is killing some mystical cat upstairs. No one look too close.
So from those sort of lessons then, how did you get into sort of the modern songs? Because obviously it's quite a traditionally classic instrument.
It is. Oh God. I think the harp teacher I learnt with was more of a kind of folk harpist
Hmm.
than like a classical harpist, which are probably the two most
Hmm.
common associations that you'll have with the harp, either as a folk instrument or as a classical instrument. But I think I just like when I was a teenager, it was the dawn of kind of like YouTube and
Hmm.
vlogging and so I saw various other people posting videos of like covering harp covers, covering pop covers online. Um, and it was in my kind of mid-teen years that my parents and my dad were like, "Oh, Scarlett, you want to go out doing things with your friends? Well, you need money to do that, and so you should probably start trying to make some money. And you play the harp, so
Hmm.
they encouraged me to go busking. And I quickly realized out busking that people get way more excited about hearing a song that they know on the
Hmm.
harp than some like beautiful classical song. And also, I found it really fun to learn pieces that kind of me and my friends were listening to at the
Hmm.
time. And then people would see me busking and ask me to come and play at their weddings. And so this small business slowly
Hmm.
grew. And I kind of n never really wanted to be I never felt like a classical musician. I never thought that I would go and study classical music at university. And so playing harp covers of pop songs at weddings quickly became my
Hmm.
kind of like my niche, I
Hmm.
guess.
Have you had any, obviously, like we said, it's kind of known for either folk or classical. Have you had any harp
Mm.
purists sort of comment on the stuff that you do?
Oh, I'm sure I have, but to
Hmm.
be honest, I've probably just ignored them.
Yeah,
I've probably just
hopefully.
not listened to them. I had I remember a specific, I was trying to remember, think of like, oh, what's a good little anecdote I can give
Hmm.
you? I remember having a conversation with another harpist when I was in my early 20s. Um, and she'd had more of a kind of classical, a mix of like classical and kind of I guess more like singer-songwritery, writing her own things. And she she just made me feel really shit, in all honesty, uh, about the fact that it's often made to feel a bit like a cop out, I
Hmm.
think, playing at weddings, or playing harp covers of pop songs and things is kind of seen as like selling out, I guess,
Hmm.
which I think is such a shame because actually, like, I found weddings are one of the few places where I can find clients who will actually appreciate the
Mm,
like the time and the work and the energy that goes into learning music on the harp and creating music for them. And one of the few markets where I feel like as an artist, I can be paid fairly for
mm,
my work. Uh, and I also think people who don't play at very many weddings do not don't realize how much work actually goes into it, and how much you have to be so alert, especially in the ceremony, and especially if someone's walking down the aisle.
mm,
I'm having to think about like 10 different things of like who's walking, who's already come, like where are we in the music, look at the people, look at the coordinator, timing everything so perfectly. Uh, and yeah,
mm,
I but I think also harpists are generally like quite polite
mm.
as far as musicians go. And so I'm sure there are way more people out there judging me for my choices. And just
Mm.
keeping it to themselves. And I'm just waltzing away, doing my own thing and not really caring.
Mm. So having a look at some of the clips of your show online, there's also sort of stand-up
Mm,
elements in your performances. So
yeah.
how did they get introduced?
So I first started studying stand-up and clowning as well when I was doing my degree. So instead of studying music, I moved to Bristol to study a degree in contemporary circus and physical theatre at Circa Media.
Oh.
Because as well as playing the harp, I was like the epitome of a little theatre kid, thought I was going to go and be an actress, and quickly realized that that didn't look, it looked way more stressful and not as fun
Mm.
as. And so I was like, what's the sensible thing I can do? Circus. That was a sensible career option, right?
Yeah.
Parents were thrilled. Uh, and yeah, so I started studying comedy at Circa Media as part of my degree. And I think also as a teenager, I'd always kind of wanted to get into comedy, but it feels like such a male-dominated
Mm.
field.
Totally.
And I was never really the obvious like class clown growing up. And so it took me a while and it took me kind of like having this studying it, I
Mm.
guess, at uni to realize, oh, this is something that I can maybe do and maybe get into. And then, yeah, first started when I started making this show kind of two, no, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago
Mm.
now, was when I started being like, right, I'm really, I want to make harp comedy. Who knows what that is, but I'm
Mm.
gonna figure it out, guys. I'm gonna take one for the team. And I'm gonna figure out what this little niche is.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and yeah, here I am. I think I've done a pretty good job, but you can come
Mm.
see the show for yourself.
You obviously hinted at the show that's coming up, Any Objections? It does seem like a
Mm.
fairly obvious question, but where does the name come from?
Oh, the name was actually, it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to call the show. Because it didn't, people often ask if I like how it was writing the show, but I don't feel like I wrote the show. I feel like I devised the
Mm.
show. I feel like I created lots of little bits and then they all kind of merged together. Uh, and so for a while, the show didn't really have a name. And to be 100% truthful, I had Edinburgh Fringe coming up, and I knew that it would benefit me for marketing to have a show that started with a letter near the beginning of the alphabet.
So it comes up at the
Because
top.
yeah, so it comes up. So when I've been to Edinburgh Fringe and you're looking for a show last minute and you're in the looking like, oh, what's happening near me within the next hour that's comedy, it's always the things that begin with like A, B, C,
Mm.
D that like come up first. And so they're the things you see again and again and again. And so I kind of wanted something. I knew I ideally wanted a name that started with the begin, like near the beginning of the alphabet. Um, given that I didn't feel like the show had an obvious name already.
Mm.
Um, or I hadn't like named it in my head from the start. And it was actually one of my lovely friends called Polly, who I know through roller derby, who suggested Any Objections. And it just felt like it made so much sense because it's
Mm.
kind of a play on the wedding phrase of like, oh, if anyone has any objections, like please speak now when you're in the ceremony. And it's the whole kind of premise of the show is that it starts with me doing kind of like stand up about my work in the wedding industry, and then it moves on to uh, various of my, I think, excellent, arguably quite unhinged business ideas,
Mm.
uh, and kind of becomes this celebration of like fun and silliness and like breaking stereotypes and trying new things and so then it kind of all ties up in the
Mm.
the last song of the show, which is when you first hear the title mentioned in the show. But I won't share too much more about that because I don't want to spoil it.
I am a very big fan of when shows say the name of the show itself.
Yeah.
Like we're the Millers, when they say we're the Millers, it just get a little cheer. I don't know what it is. I'm just like, "Mm."
You're just like, oh, oh, it happened. I get it now.
So obviously we've talked about it slightly. Obviously your wedding performances and the show being a play on that. Any objections? So, and I know you've talked
Mm.
about how stressful it can be playing at weddings, but what is it like being booked for a wedding, one of the most important days of someone's life, and then
Yeah.
you being in charge of the music of it?
Sorry, what was the question?
What
Just what is it
what is that
like?
experience like?
Oh, I mean, it's like it's such an honor.
Mm.
Like, and I always want to stress this as well, is that when I started making the show, it's not because I want to stop working at weddings.
Mm.
It's just that I wanted a little bit more variety
Hmm.
in my career, because that's what I think makes a career enjoyable or makes work
Mm.
enjoyable is when you've got different things going on. And weddings can often be so kind of like very glamorous, and I always feel like I'm there to be personable and like
Mm.
uh I'm very happy to chat to guests, and if there are any little kids that come over who are like, oh, harp, I'm like, yes, have a go, have a go.
Mm.
Uh but I'm a very like silly, dorky person, and comedy is such a passion for me. Like I love watching comedy and seeing other
Mm.
people doing comedy, and so it felt like those kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. I was
Mm.
like interested in combining, figuring out how those combine. So yeah, it is an honor. It is stressful
Mm.
uh, at times, um, but mostly it's really lovely.
Mm.
And there's always, I'm sure, as with any job, there are some days that are more fun than others. Sometimes I have more Uncle Daves who are
Mm.
quite drunkenly asking me questions about my life and the harp as I'm desperately trying to be like, oh yes, have a little chat to you. And now I should probably get on with the music now, Uncle Dave. Carry on. Oh no, you still want to chat. Great.
Still going.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And you get the occasional kids who will like just I've had a child try and climb on the harp like mid ceremony before, and I was trying to play the music as they were like signing the paperwork. Uh, and this child was like properly trying to climb my harp like a climbing frame. And I was just like, are there no adults who are gonna come in? And I eventually just had to like stop playing and was like, hi, sorry,
Yeah.
this is not a climbing frame. Uh, and like, yeah,
Mm.
ups and downs. Feel very, very lucky to have a job that I mostly enjoy.
Mm. Well, we
So I think
mentioned,
that is a privilege in our society these
yeah,
days.
totally. And obviously, we mentioned that the show was going on tour. The
Mm.
first question I wrote down, and please ignore it if it's a really simple question, but transporting a harp must be very difficult. So what's that process been like?
Oh, well, I mean, I transport it all the time for
Hmm.
weddings, so I'm quite used to having to move it around. Um, my harp packs has like a big padded travel case that it
Hmm.
goes into. It kind of looks like a giant oven mitt. And then it has a little dolly that I clip underneath it to wheel it around in venues. Um, and then I have a big kind of estate car that the harp slides into the back of. Uh, and then
Hmm.
all of the other props and gear going around it. It does mean that I've had to be quite conservative in terms of what other um like props and staging
Hmm.
and like set I wanted in the show. But I've always been a quite a fan of kind of like almost all of the other props for the show fit into like a laundry basket. And so the show starts with quite a bare stage. And then by the end of it, so many different things have come out of the box and out of the harp, and everything is a chaotic mess. And I quite like being able to create a lot from not very
Hmm.
much.
Totally.
Um, so yeah, that element of transporting it, fairly chilled. Um, I did play the venue that I played in Manchester had the steepest flight of stairs I've had to take my harp up in a long time
Right.
and no lift. And so that was a bit more stressful than I maybe would have liked. But I'm scrappy and I'm strong and I'm used to hoiking the harp up big flights of stairs every so often. It
Hmm.
keeps you fit. So,
You obviously mentioned earlier about the Fringe show. You took
mm,
it to the Fringe. So I've
yeah.
not been to the Fringe before. It's my first year this year. But what was it
Oh, wow.
like performing at the Fringe and getting that sort of notification that you were taking up space there?
Oh, so so last year I took it to Brighton Fringe, and Edinburgh Fringe. And that's quite often what people will do
Hmm.
if they have a new show that they're testing. Brighton is quite a nice test for Edinburgh, like a smaller scale. Um, Edinburgh Fringe, my God, it is the most incredible place and the most incredibly exhausting experience of your life. My God, I have never been as tired or as like emotionally and physically drained
Hmm.
as I was at Edinburgh Fringe. But you also learn so much and you meet so many interesting people. Um, and yeah,
Hmm.
I I'm so glad I did it.
Hmm.
But I've also had people ask me, are you going again this year? And I'm like, no. I need a year to recover.
It needs at least a full year to get over it.
Yeah. So yeah, did the
Hmm.
fringes last year, doing a tour this year, and then having a nap, having a little rest, financially recovering from it all. But yeah, you'll have an amazing
Hmm.
time. There's just you've not been as a punter or as a performer before.
No, no, no. So this will be I'm going for the first time ever, and I'm going as a punter.
Oh,
Very exciting.
I mean, going to Edinburgh Fringe as a punter was one of the main things that inspired me to make my show and to finally like get around to doing it because
Hmm.
I went for I think 3 years
Hmm.
uh just as a punter.
Hmm.
Um with my partner we would go up for like a week every August and just see like 25, 35 shows and soak up all of this artistic inspiration. And it was then at Edinburgh Fringe 2023
Hmm.
that I was like, right, I've been saying for ages that I want to make a solo show. It's not going to happen unless I set myself a deadline and keep to it. So, August 2025, that is when I will take my show to the Fringe. I said 2025 because I knew it would take me at least a year to make a
Hmm.
show that I liked enough and I thought was good enough and I was proud enough to feel like it was worth taking
Hmm.
it up to Edinburgh Fringe. Because it is big
Yes. Yeah.
investment financially and like in terms of your time and energy. Uh, yeah, because it's not just the month of August when you're taking a show there. There is so much prep
Totally.
work on the run up to it. So I have no idea how people take new shows every year. My
Hmm.
God, like praise be to them, but I could not do
Hmm.
it.
Totally. So we are coming to the end of my questions, but I have a couple
Mm.
more. So for people who haven't heard of Any Objections before, kind of what would you summarize it as? What can they expect from the show?
I would say that it is a fun and silly musical comedy show. It's loosely inspired by me, Scarlett, my work in the wedding industry, but it also heads into kind of like more of a surreal sketch show kind of vibe.
Hmm.
It's all about kind of like writing your own narrative and how play and silliness can be used as a tool for self-expression and kind of writing a life
Hmm.
on your own terms.
Oh, fantastic.
Also, there are snacks. And who wouldn't
I
want
was
a
gonna
show
say.
to go see a show where there is a promise of snacks?
So where can people stay up to date with you and the show?
Welcome. Oh, so you can find me, Scarlett Smith. I am on all of the social medias, or
Mhm.
not all of them. That's a lie. I basically don't. I'm on Instagram and it cross posts of Facebook, so and
Yeah.
YouTube. You can find me at Bristol Harpist, or you can see my full tour details on my website, bristolharpist.co.uk. I am doing a little run of shows in Somerset as part of Take Art's Rural Touring Scheme this week. But I don't know when this is coming out.
Hmm.
That might have already happened. And then I'm at the West End Centre in Aldershot on the 20th of March, the Front Room Theatre in Weston-super-Mare on the 11th of April, and then in London, surely there'll be some people in London,
Hmm.
at the Drayton Arms Theatre on the 12th and 13th of April. And that is where we'll be ending the tour. And I'm so excited to be ending a tour with my first ever shows in London. So come along, the show will be the best it's ever been.
I know there'll definitely be at least one person because that's the date I'm planning on heading out.
Oh,
London the
great!
12th, so so I'm
So if
very
they come
excited.
along, they can see me and you. What more could you want?
So I'll put the links in the comments below so people can scroll down and find out more about you. But my final question is what
Hmm.
advice do you have for young creatives looking to get into the industry?
That is a good question. Number one, uh, don't don't let anyone else think that you can't do the things that you want to do. There'll be so many people who doubt you,
Mhm.
and screw them. Like you only need your own permission to make the art that you want to make. Uh, and number two, don't be afraid to take time off and take time to rest and take time to remember what you enjoy doing in life that contributes to
Mm,
your ability to make your creations and your art. I think we live in such a fast-paced society and
mhm,
there is so much pressure to constantly be creating some kind of content.
mhm.
And I think actually when we just slow down a little bit,
Yeah,
uh, is when we can make the really juicy stuff.
totally. So I started by saying it, I'll end the same way. Thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. Obviously, I'm very excited to see the show on the 12th.
Oh,
And I wish you the best of luck for the rest of the tour. But I shall speak to you soon.
oh, thanks, Rhys. It's been lovely to chat to you. Bye bye.